Welcome to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you are having a great start to your week. And the Braves, once again, actually for the third straight week, are definitely getting off to a great start themselves. And this time, it's due to the offense. And that's certainly a nice change to things. As my podcast partner, Stephen Tolbert, with me once again. Of course, thank you for tuning in to the Hammer Territory Podcast, part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. But Stephen, good to talk with you as always. We've seen it for the start of 3 straight weeks now. The Braves have now officially won their 5th straight series, but this time, Stephen, it's the offense against a quality team that's really stepping up, and it's a great thing to see coming off last week when the offense had its struggles.
Yeah, what's up, Shawn? Yeah, it's a nice change of pace to give up some runs. You know, the bullpen has not had a great night, back-to-back nights. To give up some runs and to cover that up with offense, that's been the exact opposite of what we've seen all year, where the pitching has been outstanding and the Braves just can't score any runs. So to have back-to-back nights, we're going to talk about both games, but 10-6 last night, 8-6 tonight. The Twins are a very good offense. I mean, they're a very good offense, and it's tough to, especially in that ballpark, which is a really good hitter's ballpark. Like, it's tough to hold them to 2 or 3 runs. Like, you got to be able to score. And 10 runs last night, 8 runs tonight. A lot of contributions up and down the lineup. A lot of guys. It's not just 1 or 2 guys. It seems like everybody's coming up with hits. Everybody's coming up with decent at bats. Yeah, just great to see. Great to see the offense actually win a couple of games where the pitching maybe didn't have their best stuff. And it's a nice change of pace from what we've seen pretty much the rest of the year.
And we've talked about this offense throughout much of the season, Stephen. It's, not just the fact that the home runs have not been there like they were at the record-setting pace in 2023. It's been the different layers. At times, it's been near league worst production when it comes to getting on base. Obviously, the consistent struggles of the Braves being able to do any sort of damage with runners in scoring position. It's just any way that you look, this offense has struggled on multiple levels. But over the past 2 games, they've really been able to find success on multiple levels. Of course, you had the home runs on Monday night, and then overall, over the past 2 nights, we've been productive with runners in scoring position. 9 out of 22. We were productive early in the game as well. That's what's really stood out about this. This team has truly felt like what we saw last season, and against a quality team, it is such a nice change of pace. It goes again to show that while we talk about how good this Braves pitching, could be a difference maker in the postseason, it's a reminder that even with all the injuries that we've experienced, this offense still has plenty of firepower when it can get going, especially when it can find multiple ways to be able to score at once.
Well, and it starts with the big guys. Like, it starts with Matt Olson. You and I have talked about this ad nauseum at this point. I actually wrote about it for Battery Power this week, but the Braves need Matt Olson to be awesome. And he's had a really good series. He's actually had a really good few games. He had a good weekend against Washington. And, he's carried that over into Minnesota. Soler's back. Michael Harris is back. Ramon Laureano has been unbelievable. Whit Merrifield had a 5-hit game yesterday. It's up and down the lineup. I mean, Gio Urshela, Marcell Ozuna is still there, of course. It's just up and down, and it's the big guys. The Braves are going to go as far as Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson, and Jorge Soler take them, in my opinion. It's great that you're getting these other contributions from Laureano and Merrifield and Urshela, and the catchers have been there all year, but it's going to be those big 3. And Matt Olson is the key. Again, we've said it a bunch because he's left-handed. He helps so much against the right-handed pitchers. If he can do what he's done these last 4 or 5 games, where he's been Matt Olson again, ripping balls in the gap, putting balls over the wall, really good at bats, taking walks. If he can do that, then with this pitching staff, and this pitching staff is still very good. I know they haven't had, or the starters have had a pretty good series, but the bullpen has not had a great series. Some of that is from overuse, to be fair. But if the offense can wake up, if Matt Olson can be Matt Olson again, along with Ozuna and Soler, and these other guys can contribute. Ozzy will be back hopefully pretty soon. We said it last time we talked, I think, but like this team can still accomplish a lot. Like this team can still go a long ways in making the playoffs and even into October if Matt Olson and the offense really starts to pick up the pace and helps out what is still one of the best pitching staffs in baseball.
We're busy. You're busy. And figuring out food all the time is a hassle, especially when you're trying to eat right. Fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals.
Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-created meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor features fresh, never frozen meals, dietitian approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals.
Treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and salmon. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore.
Head to factormeals.com/FOUL50 and use code FOUL50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month. That's code FOUL50 at factormeals.com/FOUL50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
And let's talk a bit, before we, dive a bit further into the offense, let's talk a bit about, the pitching staff, because that also continues to stand out against a team that we were just talking about right before this podcast started, Stephen. Brad and Scott mentioned it. The Twins, I think it's always surprising, every year the Twins have a bit better offense than people may anticipate. And once again, they have one of the top offenses in baseball this season. But in back-to-back games, Max Fried and Spencer Schwellenbach have done very well. Yes, Fried only went 5 innings, Schwellenbach only 4.2 innings, but they did their job. The Braves offense got to an early lead, and then both Fried and Schwellenbach were able to silence the Twins enough to give the Braves control of the game. But let's start with Max Fried. Obviously, going back over the past month, returned from injury. He dealt with some control issues coming back from injury over his first 2 or 3 starts back, but we're starting to see him settle in once again. And on Monday, we saw his strikeout potential. We saw that back as well. I would say this, Jeff Passan of ESPN.com, released a piece earlier on Tuesday, kind of giving a little bit of an idea of where some soon-to-be free agents are heading into the offseason. Stephen, I would say there are a few pitchers out there who have more riding on the next few months in terms of their earnings potential for this offseason than Max Fried. That could be a great motivating factor. I don't think much has changed. I think it's clear, that Max Fried is more likely to move on to another team than stay with the Braves. Not going to get into that. But in terms of how the Braves benefit, Max Fried has plenty of reason to make the most of the next few months, and we're starting to see him round into form once again, and against quality teams, he can continue to be a great weapon, especially in the postseason.
Yeah, he's we saw the strikeout pitches on Monday. He had 7 strikeouts in 5 innings. We need to mention that there was a 90-minute rain delay. I think it was in the second inning of Monday's game. And so that almost certainly shortened his availability. He did come back out, which is not actually a given, by the way. 90 minutes is a long rain delay, and a lot of teams, a lot of pitchers don't come back out after that. And if that had been the case, the Braves would have been in a much different situation because they would have had to use their bullpen to cover 8 innings of that game. So the fact that he came back out was huge to begin with. He came back out. He looked great. I think at one point he retired like 12 or 15 in a row. He had 7 strikeouts in 5 innings, which of course is a very good strikeout rate. He was fantastic. And he's a left-hander, obviously. So against this lineup that has a bunch of lefties, a lot of their big hitters are lefties, especially without, they don't have Correa and they don't have Buxton right now. So, a lot of their big guys are lefties, and he was able to neutralize a lot of that. And yeah, the bullpen has struggled. Again, this is a really, really good offense. Like you said, I think probably a lot of Braves fans don't fully realize how good the Twins are, especially offensively. And for Max to, I think he went 5. I think he gave up a run in the last inning. He was out there, but 5 innings, 7 strikeouts, 1 earned run with a 90-minute rain delay in the middle of that was very impressive. And he's just continuing to build off his, he's had a few good starts in a row now. And yeah, it's huge. I mean, you and I talked about it a bunch, but you get Sale, Max Fried, Ronaldo, Schwellenbach, you get all those guys back rolling again and healthy into October. I mean, there's not much you can't do. I mean, there's not much you can't accomplish with that quality of starting rotation and then add in the bullpen. And like we said, if the offense gets going along with it, you can do a lot. So yeah, it's great to see against a really good offense, a really good hitters. You know, I've heard hitters talk about how much they love hitting in Minnesota. It's got apparently like an amazing batter's eye. Hitters are extremely comfortable there. There's always big offense there. So for him to come in and do that with a rain delay in the middle, yeah, that was super impressive for Max on Monday.
Absolutely. And, we're used to seeing Chris Sale have the success that he does. We're used to seeing Max Fried have the success that he does. But Spencer Schwellenbach, once again on Tuesday, he wasn't at his best. He wasn't as impressive as he has been many times over the past few months, but he did his job. A little bit more wild on Tuesday night than usual. Also just gave up a lot of foul balls as well. 106 pitches, only got him through 4 2/3 innings. But Stephen, here's the most impressive thing. I mentioned it last time that he started against the Phillies. As good as he's been over the past couple of months, I put some numbers out there on Twitter the other day comparing, the fact that he had been right in line with Paul Skeens in terms of what he can control as a pitcher over the past few months. But the other factor that started to emerge over the past couple of starts is Schwellenbach can hold his own against quality competition. For instance, this was the 5th start Schwellenbach has made this season against a team that currently has 70 or more wins. In other words, some of the best teams in baseball. He started against the Orioles. You may have been to that game, Stephen. I can't remember or not, but against the Orioles, the Padres, twice against the Phillies, and now once against the Twins. In those 5 games, Spencer Schwellenbach has pitched 30.2 innings. He has given up only 6 runs in those 30.2 innings, 29 strikeouts compared to 7 walks, and a 1.79 ERA. I feel with confidence we can say Spencer Schwellenbach can get the job done against quality competition. And to your point, it is such an advantage for a team, especially in the postseason, when you can have a plethora of options that you could potentially trust to go through a full round of an opposing lineup. Sell, Fried, Lopez, Schwellenbach, Grant Holmes, for instance, maybe out of the bullpen. But Schwellenbach, I think, has shown he can be at his best against quality competition, and that just adds more depth. That could be a huge advantage when it comes to October.
Yeah, well, he strikes guys out, and that's so much of the battle. Like, it's as much as it gets talked about, it's probably still not talked about enough how vital that is. The Twins tonight, they had at one point they were running like a 500, 600 BABIP for the game when they were putting balls in play. But Spencer was striking so many guys out, they were having trouble even with that, getting anything going because every 2 or 3 batters, Spencer was getting another strikeout. And that's just such a weapon. It neutralizes offense so quickly when you can strike guys out. And that's, of course, a benefit of having Chris Sale, Schwellenbach, Ronaldo strikes a lot of guys out. Max is not striking out as many guys this year, but he has picked up the strikeouts a little bit lately. It's just such a weapon. And, for him, I thought the Twins did a good job of working counts. He had I think he left the game with like 106 or 107 pitches. He didn't get through the 5th inning. So, that's obviously he's pretty efficient. So that's a pretty good job by the Twins, I thought. I know he's going to be frustrated about walking those 2 guys in the last, he had 2 out, nobody on in the bottom of the 5th and ended up walking his last 2 hitters before having to come out of the game. So I know he's going to be annoyed by that, by not being able to get through the 5th, but yeah, 8 strikeouts, and not even 5 innings of work is big time strikeout numbers. So it's, that's what the Braves needed. The bullpen's been struggling in this series, and the Braves are going to need Sale to be really good tomorrow and hopefully go 6 or 7 innings. But the rotation's been solid. I mean, 2 earned runs in basically 10 innings for Max and Schwellenbach in this series against a really good offense in a place that's nice to hit in. Yeah, that's strong. That's strong work. And obviously now the Braves will have a chance to go for a sweep with their best pitcher on the mound tomorrow.
Absolutely. So the starting rotation is doing its job. Obviously, the lineup is doing its job. But let's talk a bit about the bullpen. Yes, the Braves, have won 5 straight series. They're playing good overall baseball right now when they need to. But the bullpen also has had, its hiccups. Over the past few weeks. There's been a couple of games, obviously, going back to that disastrous loss in Colorado. A couple of other games over the past couple of weeks as well. And here recently, Stephen, what stood out is that the usage of, in particular, Luke Jackson on Sunday, which, led to the Braves losing to the Nationals, and then the Twins coming back in Tuesday night's game, the usage of Jesse Chavez. The thing that I'll say is this, is that, Brad and Scott talked about it, here in the near future, coming up, I believe, on Sunday, the Braves are going to have the ability to expand their roster. They're going to have the ability to add a pitcher. And I know for, several weeks now, us and many others have talked about the fact that the Braves have some good young arms down in AAA that just right now probably would be more beneficial than the likes of a Luke Jackson or a Jesse Chavez, especially when it comes to, meaningful innings. Coming to mind, Daysbel Hernandez, but you also have starters Ian Anderson as well as AJ Smith-Shawver. The starters may not necessarily be needed, but the point that I'm getting at is that I think we're to the point now to where Luke Jackson, Jesse Chavez, obviously they have had big moments in recent years for the Braves, but right now they're just not good options to be able to utilize. There are better options that are out there. The Braves likely could use the young, potential strikeout potential of like a Smith-Shawver or a Daysbel Hernandez. The point that I'm getting at, especially with the ability to expand the roster here in the near future, it seems that now is the time to give a Smith-Shawver, to give a Hernandez the opportunity to see if they could potentially emerge as a weapon for the postseason. And without a doubt, either one of those two would seem to be a better option than Luke Jackson or Jesse Chavez. I think the time is now for the Braves to potentially feature a couple of their young arms and overall make the bullpen better going into a pivotal home stretch.
Yeah. The bullpen stuff is a little weird at the moment. The context, of course, that we need to lay before this is that the bullpen has been used a ton, right? The Braves have been playing all of these low scoring 1-2 run games, and the bullpen has been used a lot, not necessarily for a lot of innings because the starters have pitched really well, but they've pitched a lot of high pressure, high stress, high leverage innings late in games. The back end guys, Iglesias and Jimenez specifically, have pitched a ton lately. So that matters. That's part of this conversation. But, like tonight, I don't understand, if you know that you have maybe, some of your guys aren't as fresh as you would like them to be. Tonight Snit had Dylan Lee come in and finish the 5th inning for Schwellenbach, but Dylan Lee basically threw 3 pitches and got the guy out, and he was pulled from the game. And so he only faced 1 batter. And like, that's a guy like Dylan Lee's too good, and he's a multi-inning guy, especially if your bullpen is not as strong as you want it to be at the moment. Dylan Lee's a guy that needs to go multiple innings or at least multiple batters. Having Jesse Chavez pitch multiple innings, especially with all the left-handers that Minnesota has, and have Dylan Lee face 1 hitter, that seems backwards to me. I didn't understand the usage tonight. And like you talked about with Luke Jackson and Jesse, there's just not an obvious place for them to come in and pitch. I mean, they brought in Luke to pitch a 9-2 game in Colorado, and the Braves lost that game. So, they brought him in against Washington, and he gave up 3 runs. Jesse tonight gave up 4 hits and 3 runs and 4 batters. So, yeah, I don't understand why Daysbel is in AAA, if I'm being honest. I understand the Braves like to keep their depth, but losing Luke Jackson or Jesse Chavez just to me is not as a big enough risk to justify having a guy like Daysbel in AAA. It's all hands on deck time. We've talked about it for weeks now. The time for giving guys rest and trying to keep your depth and maybe not having your best 26 guys in the majors, like, that time's over. Like, it's time to go win. And you can't tell me that Daysbel is not one of the best 26 guys that could be on the roster and one of the best 8 guys that could be in the bullpen. So, yeah, I don't get that. I don't get the bullpen usage tonight. I don't get why Dylan Lee was given 1 batter when he's so much better than Chavez, and especially with all the lefties. I don't understand why Aaron Bummer has basically been relegated to just mop up duty. Like, Aaron Bummer has got the highest or the best FIP and the best XFIP on the team. And he's been relegated to just like mop up duty. Like, Jesse Chavez gets higher leverage spots than he does. I don't understand that. I would like to see Daysbell in the majors take the temptation away from Snit to use Jackson and Chavez as much as possible. Honestly, I'd probably just DFA Jackson at this point. Chavez is at least still somewhat useful in lower leverage spots, but I wouldn't use Jackson at all. I would just DFA him and bring up Hernandez. But yeah, like you said, the rosters expand on Sundays, so I'm guessing we'll see Daysbell then. But yeah, it's time to have your best relievers on the team, and it's time to stop using some of these guys. I mean they brought in Luke Jackson in a tie game on Sunday. I mean that's crazy. I don't care how. I would much rather see Aaron Bummer than Luke Jackson. I know some fans don't like Aaron. Aaron Bummer's really good, and I know fans don't always necessarily agree with that, but he is. He's very good, and I would much rather see him. So yeah, the bullpen stuff is a little weird, to be honest, and I don't fully understand some of the decisions that have been made, both with the roster as constructed, as well as when to use certain guys, especially tonight. I didn't understand a lot that happened tonight.
Well, one other thing that we saw happen to tonight on Tuesday night that we have consistently seen time and time again, really over the past few weeks, is the fact that one of either Whit Merrifield or Ramon Laureano, and to a bit of a lesser extent, because he's just been here for a shorter amount of time, Gio Urshela. But between Merrifield and Laureano, either one of them or both of them are stepping up and having big moments, it seems like, every single night. Of course, Monday night, Merrifield had, 5 base hits, just an outstanding performance from him. He's kind of found a bit of a home for right now at the top of the order. But I first want to focus on Ramon Laureano, Stephen. One thing that I looked at in his time with the Braves is that right now he's connecting at nearly a 19% clip when it comes to barrels. Like 90% of the balls that he's put in play as a member of the Braves have been barrels. Without a doubt, the highest of his career. One of the best marks in baseball since he joined the Braves. He once again is a great example of Atlanta being able to adjust the overall approach of a player who had previous success elsewhere. And then once they came to Atlanta, they're able to find a way to allow for them to be productive once again. But that really stands out to me. To me, that shows that the numbers that he's putting up, I'm not necessarily saying he's a guy who's going to sustain a 140 WRC plus throughout the rest of the season in the playoffs, but there is some, legitimate underlying, proof that the numbers he's putting up are really there. They're valid in terms of how good he's doing. What have you seen that just makes you think, okay, right now, obviously Soler because of his bat, Michael Harris II because of his overall game, but right now Laureano truly is one of our 3 best outfielders, and it's because of the fact that he's just making such good quality contact at the plate.
Yeah, I mean he hits the ball hard. Like if you look at like his average exit velocity, like his Statcast stuff, it's not like elite. It's not up there in like the Aaron Judge, people that know about this stuff. Like Matt Olson is a guy that just destroys baseballs. He hits the ball so hard. He's not in that group, but he's kind of like that next group down. I think his average EV this year is like 91 miles an hour, which is very good. It's very good. That's crushing the ball on a regular basis. So he's got like the raw skills that you look for in that regard. He's never been he's not a huge plate discipline guy, which has always been the thing that's held him back a little bit. He does strike out quite a bit. But listen, he had 3 more hits tonight. He's got like a 140 WRC plus since joining the Braves. He's been the best outfielder not named Michael Harris or Jorge Soler. I tweeted this tonight, but I think they should just go away from the platoon, honestly, and just let Laureano start every game. I mean, he's been hitting righties and lefties. That double he hit in the 10th inning tonight off Duran, who was throwing 102 miles an hour. He roped that double into the right center field gap for a big, what turned out to be a very big 2 runs, since the Twins ended up scoring 2 in the bottom half. I mean, that's impressive. And honestly, the at-bats he's putting up are so much better than what anything Kelenic has done. Really, for going on like 2 or 3 months now with Kelenic. Kelenic's been pretty disappointing if I'm being honest, kind of in all facets of the game. He made up for it, but he had that play in the 10th where he should have scored on the double from Ozuna. He got kind of stuck at second. He wasn't sure what to do. He did end up scoring on the next hitter and actually made a pretty good play to score on that ground ball from Olsen. But yeah, Kelenic's he hasn't been very good for a long time. And again, this is the time of the year where it doesn't really matter what role you were supposed to have. Like the guys that are playing the best need to play. And the guys that are, your best players need to be on the roster and they need to be in the lineup. And Laureano's just been better than anything Kelnick has done for a long time now. So I would have Laureano starting just about every day, honestly. Unless there's a really tough right hander on the mound and you feel like Kelnick maybe has a better advantage. I'd let Laureano play and just let Kelnick be the guy that comes in for Soler later in games. But yeah, he's been unbelievable. I mean, he's been truly a 140 WRC plus for a guy that you picked up on, from the trash sheet pile in June is incredible. Incredible work by Alex. And, he's really saved the Braves bacon. I know he's had some bad plays defensively. I think he's cleaned that up a little bit. He's not actually a bad defender. He's graded out in his career better than what he's shown with the Braves. But the bat has been so good, and that's what the Braves have needed, most of the year with it, as bad as their offense has been. So, yeah, Laureano's been awesome, and I would play him a lot more, quite honestly, going forward until Kelnick starts showing any signs of life.
And then, of course, Whit Merrifield, again, the thing that has stood out about him in recent days, despite, his 5-hit effort on Monday, is the fact that he's now at the top of the order. And he's a bit different, style of being at the top of the order. He's a bit more old school in terms of, the contact high OBP guy versus who the Braves usually have there. They're high OBP guys like Acuna and Soler. But, with both Acuna and Soler, you've also got the dynamic bats that can, put the ball out of the ballpark at any given moment as well. That's not Merrifield's game. But Stephen, we've talked about it multiple times this year, just how much it would, improve the Braves' overall offense if they could just get a guy at the top of the order who can get on base. And for right now, that's why I'm okay with Whit Merrifield being at the top of the order versus like maybe a Michael Harris or another option like that. I know Soler obviously would be a great leadoff option, but Soler kind of is, your best potential option. He's not Austin Riley, but being kind of that high OBP, high power option you could bat in the second spot, Soler's kind of the best option that you have to put in front of Ozuna as well as Matt Olson. So again, Merrifield is not as dynamic of a bat when he makes contact as other leadoff options that the Braves have had over the past couple of years. But right now, he is getting on base at a consistent clip. That clearly is making a big difference for this Braves offense. And so I think that as we move forward, even when Ozzy Albies comes back, I think that as long as Merrifield's getting on base at around a 400 clip, I think it makes sense to put him up at the top of the order. The results that we've seen, over the past a couple of days, I think that speaks to it. It's just nice to have that consistent on-base option at the top of the order.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny with, if you look at Laureano and Merrifield, how kind of polar opposite they are. I mean, Merrifield is a, high walk, low strikeout, relatively low damage hitter. He has one of the weaker average exit velocities you'll see from a major league regular. He does his damage by taking a lot of walks, by kind of looping balls over the infield for singles. He'll gap one every once in a while. And then, the exact opposite is Laureano, who strikes out a ton, doesn't walk a lot, but he does a lot of damage when he puts the bat on the ball. He hits homers, he hits doubles, he hits the ball really hard. And the Braves have had, success with both of these guys, and they're really quite opposite from one another. But yeah, I agree with you. I guarantee you that's Snit's thinking is, Merrifield gets on base. He takes a lot of walks. He sees a lot of pitches. It's not a bad guy to have at the top. Once you lose Riley, it's tough to put Soler there because then, there's the gap in the 2-hole and Soler probably makes more sense batting second. So then you need somebody in the leadoff spot. I like Merrifield there. I mean, a 12% walk rate out of the leadoff spot is never bad. And he had a 5-hit game again on Monday, so he can get his hits. He's not going to hit the ball hard, but he can get his hits. He can get his singles, he can get his walks, and he's got enough speed where out of the leadoff spot, that is valuable. So, yeah, these two guys specifically have been, just godsends. The Braves would be dead in the water without these two guys coming in and contributing the way they have. I don't know if these two guys are going to get the Jock Peterson, Adam Duvall, Eddie Rosario love that those guys get from 2021. I guess it'll depend on what happens in October, but these guys have been every bit as impactful in terms of the regular season, at least, about helping the Braves stay above water, waiting for Matt Olson to get going and some of the other offensive guys to get going. these guys have been crucial and they've been unbelievable. And kudos to Alex for making the moves, and credit to these guys for coming in, getting a second chance on their season and taking advantage of it.
Speaking of taking advantage of opportunities, that's exactly what the Braves need to do on Wednesday. 11-4, 12-4, over the past, 2 weeks plus 5 straight series wins. That is great. That is awesome to see from the Braves, especially, it coming right after, the disastrous weekend against Colorado, obviously in the mix there. You also lost Austin Riley. It's just been great to see how this Braves team has responded to adversity over the past couple of weeks. But the New York Mets, you got to give them credit. They're continuing to play good baseball against quality opponents right now. The Philadelphia Phillies are doing the same thing against the Houston Astros. The point that I'm getting at is that as good as the Braves have been playing, yes, they've made up, they've expanded their, last spot in the wild card lead over the Mets over the past couple of weeks as well. But the Braves need to get this series sweep with their best pitcher on the mound on Wednesday, especially before going to Philadelphia for 4 games. Chris Sale on the mound in Minnesota. It's a setting that he's, familiar with, from his time, in the American League. This should be going into this series. This clearly was, I feel the matchup that the Braves probably had to feel the most confident about. But as good of a series win as it is, that's great. But this needs to be an opportunity for the offense to once again get an early lead and then let Sale do his work. The Braves could really use a series sweep against Minnesota, and you have to feel confident they can get the job done with Sale on the mound, and again, the offense going at the clip that it is.
Yep. I think they're 11-4 in their last 15 games or something like that. 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 5 straight series. All coming after that disastrous game in Colorado where they blew a 9-2 lead in the 8th inning. So, yeah, great. I mean, obviously, at the time we talked about that loss and how maybe we'll look back and see that being the low point of the year and maybe what gets them going. And so far it has. I mean, they haven't lost a series since then. They've won every series they've played. They've already won this series, but like you said, it's time to get greedy. With Sale on the mound, it's tough to be greedy and ask for a sweep at the beginning of the series. But once you get to the 3rd game and you've won the first 2, you got your best pitcher on the mound. You've got a guy pitching for the other team that is not good. He's got an ERA in the 5s. He's a relative unknown. This is time to be greedy, especially since, obviously with Sale pitching tomorrow, that means he's not going to pitch at all in the Philadelphia series. So, the Braves are going to play the Phillies 7 times between last series and this series, and Sale's not going to pitch in any of those games, which is obviously a bummer. But that means you got to take advantage of the fact that he's pitching in the Twins series and try to get that sweep. So hopefully they can do that tomorrow. Hopefully the offense stays awake. This offense for the Twins is very good. This ballpark is a really good ballpark to hit in. Even if Sale's on his game, it's going to be tough for him to go 7 innings and give up 1 run like he's been doing. So the offense is going to have to score. The guy they're facing on the other side is a guy they should be able to get some runs off of. Let's keep it up. Let's keep the offense going. Let's not go back to sleep and depend on Sale to throw a shutout to get a win. Let's give him 5 or 6 runs and maybe even, here's a crazy idea. Maybe even get like an easy win, maybe like a blowout win. That's, 8 runs or something. That's an easy win and you don't have to sweat it out in the 8th and 9th and 10th innings. But yeah, they need to get greedy tomorrow, especially with Sale not pitching against Philadelphia. Get greedy and go for a sweep.
I think you bring up a great point about, talking about a series sweep. That mentality is a bit, far-fetched against a quality opponent like the Twins, maybe at the first of the series. But, when you've won your first 2 games, now you got your best arm on the mound, it becomes a little bit more feasible to be greedy. And the other good thing about it, Stephen, we talk about this week-by-week breakdown. The Braves being able to get 4 to 5 wins every week. If you can get the win on Wednesday, that's 3 wins so far this week against 2 teams right now that are clearly in the playoff picture. That means, of course, you want to, split or better against Philadelphia. But if you can get a series sweep versus the Twins, that means you've only got to get 1 win against Philadelphia to make this a winning week. I know the Braves want more, but that just puts them in a strong position to make it through a tough, stretch in this August and September schedule. And then the schedule lightens up a bit going into the 1st of September. So if the Braves can get the job done against the Twins and get this series sweep, they'll be riding some good momentum against Philadelphia to hopefully get some good results there. It's just just really good to see this team not only bounce back again from the adversity that they've seen, but also the offense start to pull its weight and the offense start to be a reason why they're having their success. Stephen, as we wrap up this edition of the Hammer Territory podcast, anything else that you've got to add coming off the Braves? Second straight impressive offensive victory, going for the sweep tomorrow. Again, it's just good. It's fun to see this offense, kind of firing all cylinders once again. It's always fun when you can watch some good offensive baseball lead to wins.
Yeah, I'll close with the same thing that we sort of opened with and been talking about. In my opinion, it comes down to Matt Olson. It comes down to how good Matt Olson is. I don't expect him to be the guy he was last year, where he was an MVP candidate, but I do expect him to be a really, really good hitter, because that's what he is. He's a really good hitter, and he's had a rough year, but he's looked so much better in the last few days. And, I truly believe that if he can turn around and be great for this last month and even into October, that this offense can still do quite a bit with him and Ozuna and Soler together, and Ozzy coming back soon and Michael back. So I think it starts with Matt. And he's been obviously fantastic the last few games, and hopefully it continues.
Yeah, and I think that if you look over his time in Atlanta, I know that Matt Olson has had, his streaky times. It can be frustrating to see him go as ice cold as he has at times compared to the MVP caliber season he had last year. But if you just look at his 2+ years so far in Atlanta, you'll notice that when he plays in big games for the Braves against quality opponents, either if it's at home or on the road, Matt Olson delivers. You go back to the 22 playoffs against Philadelphia. If I remember correctly, Olson was one of the only ones that actually had, a pretty decent series. He's delivered multiple times in away games against Philadelphia over the past couple of years. He was huge in that end of the year series in 2022 against the Mets. Matt Olson, whatever opinion you may have of him, he has a very good track record of stepping up in big moments against quality opponents when the Braves need him the most, and he's doing it once again. To Steven's point, go read his excellent article over at Battery Power about the Braves needing Olson to be Olson. If he could do it once again, that could be a big, big boost. And I'll end with this. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If this Braves team can play like they're playing right now consistently, you will find it hard for whatever opponent that they face, at least in the wild card round of the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, you'll find it hard for them to face an opponent who's going to have a better 1-2 combination than Sale and Fried when it comes to the pitching staff, or have a better 1-2 combination of bats than Ozuna and Olson. So it would be really big for Olson to find his success. For Stephen Tolbert, my name is Shawn Coleman. You can find Stephen at B_outliers, myself at StatsSAC on Twitter. Of course, make sure you follow Hammer Territory across all forms of social media, and Foul Territory wherever you get your podcasts. That's where we'll be for free. Just hit that subscribe button. Until next time, go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.